Imagine waking up one morning and the world you've always known disappears. Not just for a day, but for years. The sky turns dark, crops fail, famine spreads, people starve, and disease follows. Millions suffer, and no one knows why. Historians and scientists believe there was a year in human history so terrifying, so devastating, that it might be the single worst year to be alive ever recorded. But which year was it? And what horrors did people endure? Today on Science Secrets, we're traveling back in time to uncover the terrifying story of humanity's darkest year. One of the most catastrophic moments in human history begins in the year 536 CE, a year that many historians now believe was the worst year to be alive. Historians like Michael McCormick of Harvard University have even described 536 CE as the worst year in history due to its brutal environmental and societal impacts. The tipping point was a massive volcanic eruption in the northern hemisphere, possibly from Iceland or another unknown source. Scientists believe that the eruption spewed vast amounts of ash and sulfur into the atmosphere, blocking out the sun for months. The result was an abrupt drop in temperatures and what scholars call a volcanic winter. Contemporary accounts from ancient writers describe a sky so dim that the sun shone like the moon without brightness or warmth. Farmers struggled as frost and cold persisted in summer months. Crops failed across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. In China, summer snows were reported, wiping out harvests. The lack of sunlight and severe cooling triggered widespread food shortages that quickly turned into famine. Without adequate crops or livestock to sustain them, many populations fell into starvation. This wasn't just local hardship, it was global suffering. Perhaps even more troubling, the collapse of food resources and the spread of desperate conditions opened the door to disease. Just a few years later, in 541 CE, the plague of Justinian began in Egypt and spread across the Roman Empire, killing tens of millions of people in the decades that followed. So what made 536 CE so uniquely horrifying? It wasn't one disaster. It was a chain reaction. Volcanic ash blocked the sun. Climate collapsed. Crops failed. Famine spread. Disease erupted. These conditions lasted for years, and their effects reverberated throughout the ancient world for decades. The combination of prolonged darkness, starvation, and pestilence might be one of the poorest combinations any human has ever endured. While 536 CE stands out in recorded history, even earlier in human history, humanity faced terrifying environmental upheavals. About 74,000 years ago, a massive volcanic supereruption occurred at the site of what is now Toba in Indonesia. This was unlike anything in recorded human or geological memory. A supereruption that blasted enormous quantities of ash and sulfur into the atmosphere, possibly triggering a long period of reduced sunlight and global cooling. Scientists refer to this event as the Toba supereruption, and some researchers propose that it was one of the most significant threats early humans ever faced. The idea, known as the Toba catastrophe theory, suggests that the eruption caused a dramatic volcanic winter that pushed our species to the brink. According to this theory, global human population may have dropped to dangerously low numbers, perhaps as few as a few thousand individuals. However, recent archaeological evidence complicates this picture. Stone tools found in India show that humans survived in various regions before and after the event. Some studies even suggest that populations continued to thrive in places like Africa, despite the eruption's effects. This challenges the idea that humanity nearly went extinct. but it does not diminish how harsh and dangerous this period likely was. Regardless of whether the human population truly plunged, the environmental impact of the Toba eruption would have been severe. Ash clouds would have reduced sunlight, disrupting photosynthesis and leading to widespread crop failures, colder temperatures, and environmental stress across much of the globe. Imagine living through years of little sunlight, failing food supplies, and plummeting temperatures with no scientific understanding of what was happening. Early humans would have faced the constant struggle to find food, maintain warmth, and avoid disease and starvation. Unlike 536 CE, which we know from written accounts, this prehistoric crisis leaves only fragments in the geological record and genetic traces in human DNA. But the story is just as frightening. A world plunged into darkness, resources collapsing, communities scattered, and survival hanging by a thread. Even after humanity developed agriculture and complex civilizations, there were terrifying years in which climate, famine, disease, and societal collapse converged, reminding us that these threats weren't limited to prehistory. One classic example is the Russian famine of 1601 to 1603. This devastating famine, triggered by a volcanic winter from the Huayna Putina eruption in Peru in 1600, caused drastically cold conditions across the northern hemisphere. In Russia alone, it's estimated that perhaps 30% of the population died from starvation and disease during this period. This famine occurred during a time known as the Little Ice Age, a period of cooler global temperatures that persisted for centuries and caused repeated crop failures around the world. Although humanity was no longer in its infancy, people still lacked the capacity to mitigate such global climate disruptions effectively. Earlier still, around 2200 BC, another climatic event known as the 4.2 kilo-year event saw prolonged droughts across multiple civilizations. This long dry period is linked to the collapse of several ancient societies, including the Old Kingdom in Egypt, the Akkadian Empire in Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley Civilization. Societal breakdown followed as water scarcity led to crop failures, migrations, and weakened states. And just a few centuries after 536 CE, the world experienced additional plagues and hardships. The plague of Justinian, one of the first major recorded pandemics, erupted in 541 CE and continued for years, killing millions across Europe and the Mediterranean. These examples remind us that human history is full of years when life was extraordinarily dangerous. A volcanic eruption causes global cooling and widespread famine. A prolonged drought collapses entire civilizations. A pandemic sweeps through populations unprepared. All of these factors, climate collapse, famine, disease, have struck humanity throughout history, each time pushing communities to the brink of survival. What makes these years so horrifying isn't just death. It's the uncertainty, the collapse of normal life, and the helplessness people felt against forces far beyond their control. On the worst days of human history, survival itself became the biggest challenge. Human history is marked by remarkable resilience, but also terrifying setbacks. Years like 536 CE, prehistoric volcanic coolings, devastating famines, and ancient droughts remind us how fragile life once was. Today, we look back on these moments with scientific curiosity and deep respect for those who survived. If you enjoyed this journey into humanity's most harrowing times, subscribe to Science Secrets for more deep dives into the hidden stories of our past.